You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
You're listening to Mission Log the Orville, an episode-by-episode discussion of the adventures of the crew of the USS Orville. Welcome to another episode of Mission Log the Orville. This week, A Tale of Two Topas, the one where a Topa learns about his past and winds up knowing that she will never walk alone. We'll discuss the meanings, morals, and messages to see if this episode aligns with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy. My name is Mike Richards.
And I'm Jessica Lynn Verdi. Mission Log the Orville is a conversation that depends on your participation. Please share your thoughts, ideas, and you can tell us what we missed at ML_the Orville on Twitter, Mission Log Pod on Facebook, or you can even email us at missionlog-the Orville at Roddenberry.com. If you're watching this on the Roddenberry YouTube channel, hit like and subscribe. And remember, we might use your comments on an upcoming episode. We have Jeff at Minis and Cats tweeted, "How the heck did I not know the Orville was out already for like a month? Minus major nerd points." Well, I'm a full believer that you don't have to lose your nerd points just because you didn't know something. But I believe Mission Log the Orville responded saying that as long as you catch up, we'll give you those points back, right?
We'll give him back as long as he catches up ASAP.
ASAP. You better get on it, Jeff. And now, Mike, we're going to enjoy your recap.
Oh, boy. A Tale of Two Topas. Prologue. The Orville is exploring the ruins of a Hemblicite Empire, a civilization that died out 50,000 years ago, no doubt because they couldn't adapt to changing times. Anyway, Ed's been busy writing letters to Anaya, hoping that one day she may get to read them. Kelly's impressed, as Charlie shouts words you never want to hear from a red shirt. "Commander, we found something." With a little help from Isaac, the main burial tomb is exposed. Jackpot. In the simulator, Topa is working on the command program. He confides in Kelly that he'd like to take the Union Point entrance exam. Kelly offers to mentor him as the opening credits roll. Act 1. Kelly takes Topa on her daily rounds. This mainly deals with showing the crew that she cares, and maybe ironing out the occasional cultural issue. Kelly asks why Topa wants to serve. His response indicates that he feels incomplete, unhappy. He hasn't found answers at home. Maybe he can find them among the stars. After sharing their conversation with Ed and Claire, the three decide it's time for Kelly to talk to Bortus and Clyden. Clyden is predictably outraged, while Bortus is open to discuss the possibility of telling Topa about his origins. Clyden is trying to spare Topa the pain that he suffered himself, knowing that he was born female. The next morning, Kelly awaits Topa's arrival. It turns out that Topa may no longer train with Kelly, maybe with Ed, but Topa doesn't feel the same connection with Ed that he feels with Kelly. Visiting the astrophysics lab, Topa asks Isaac what it was like to be dead. What did it feel like? Was he unhappy to be brought back? Thank the Maker that Isaac reported this conversation to Kelly, as recommended by Union Protocol. Act 2. Kelly finds Topa in the mess hall and tells him a piece of kimbap or Macklin apsata cake might make him feel better. He should search the computer and see what he can find out about kimbap. Topa finds a file named Kimbap33, but it's password protected. After a brief pause, the password appears, and Topa is able to see the truth about his origins. Confronting his parents, Clyden denies, Bortus concedes, and the three of them discuss. Topa accuses them of lying. Bortus says they were trying to protect Topa. Clyden says it is true that Topa was born malformed, but the doctor fixed him. He is male now, and that is all that matters. Topa said he has felt out of place his entire life. Clyden walks out, just as Bortus says, "We love you for everything you are and everything you were." In Kelly's office, Clyden accuses her of playing God with his family, but Kelly is adamant that she didn't give Topa the password to Kimbap 33. More importantly, Topa is in trouble. He needs help, and Kelly helped. After she staves off an attack by Clyden, Bortus is next to visit. Kelly apologizes for helping Topa, but Bortus admits that it was he who sent the password to Topa. A sobbing and helpless Bortus confides that he does not know how to help his child. Act 3. Claire reports that she's not concerned Topa will harm himself, and she does believe that Kelly did the right thing. So what's next? That's up to Topa, who wishes he could meet a Macklin female. Kelly offers the next best thing, a simulation of the tribunal which decided that Topa would receive the corrective procedure. In the courtroom, Topa meets Havina. She's wise, happy, and she loves the person she is. As if for the first time, Topa sees the person they can be, someone they can really look up to, someone to aspire to. With that, Topa notifies Dr. Finn that she is female. Bortus, Clyden, Claire, Ed, and Kelly discuss her options. Union law states that if a child is not of legal age, it requires the consent of at least one parent or guardian, not both. That leaves it up to Bortus, who seems ready to make the call. However, it's not that simple. This could imperil the Union's relationship with the Macklins. With the Kalan threat and the Krill Treaty in ruins, the Union needs the Macklins in order to save lives. Sadly, the Admiralty decides that the procedure cannot be accomplished by a Union doctor on a Union ship. Admiral Howland out. Bortus and Kelly deliver the news to Topa. Topa is despondent. She hates the universe, but if they insist that she be male, then that is what she will be. This makes me wonder if an adolescent Clyden wasn't on the receiving end of a similar conversation back in the day. Act 4. On the planet's surface, the team is just about finished mapping the catacombs when Claire has an idea. What if she resigns her commission? Then she wouldn't be a Union doctor, and the Macklins and the Admiralty could save face. Ed and Kelly reluctantly agree when Isaac points out that he is not a Union officer. Ergo, he can perform the procedure. That'll work, but only if everyone on the Orville can say they knew nothing of the operation. And what's better than Bortus in concert to get everybody away from their workstation? With Bortus on the mic and Ty Finn on the keyboards, the key dialed in just right, Bortus leans into Enchanted Boy by Eden Abez, made famous by Nat King Cole. Looking out among the stars, Topa is interrupted by Isaac, who asks her to come with him, that he's there to help. In the medbay, Topa is afraid, but wishes to go through with the procedure. Isaac reassures her, using his best bedside manner, and she reclines on the medical bed as Clyden enters to disrupt the procedure. Clyden says that this will destroy Topa. Not true. Topa will be a monstrosity. Also inaccurate. Isaac surmises that Clyden's ability to reason has been compromised by his cultural indoctrination. Clyden's efforts to get around Isaac are unsuccessful, as Clyden leaves Isaac to perform the procedure. Back on the hangar deck, Bortus sings the last few lines of You'll Never Walk Alone by Rodgers and Hammerstein, as Topa slowly reawakens. Feet on the floor, she looks herself in the mirror and smiles the kind of smile that means you're happy, inside and out. On the bridge, the USS Newton has arrived to take over the science duties. All that's left before the Orville breaks orbit is the obligatory chewing out by Admiral Howland. The Macklins are pissed, but they're pissed at the Kalan, so that's good, right? Just don't do it again. Oh, by the way, extend my best wishes to the Macklin girl. As Clyden packs his stuff, Topa simply says she had to. To live her life the way he wanted would have been a lie. A plea for tolerance from Bortus falls on deaf ears as he asks Clyden, what inner fulfillment are you enjoying from this devotion to tradition that is so potent that it drives him from their family? One last appeal from Topa, Papa, I love you, which is met with a scornful, I wish you were never born. Bortus, getting the hang of the single dad thing pretty quickly, says, listen to me. You are perfect. In the lab, Claire thanks Isaac, for which he responds with a Kalan version of, aw shucks, ma'am, 'tweren't nothing. On to dinner for those two. Act 5. Kelly invites Topa to come to the bridge and sit in the command chair when they break orbit. Her walk to the bridge is accompanied by the orchestra playing You'll Never Walk Alone, where she's greeted by Ed, Kelly, Charlie, Gordon, and a proud Bortus. At Ed's invitation, Topa takes the command chair for the first time, where she says those words we all know so well. Engage, quantum drive. The end.
Aw, I think you did a wonderful job, Mike.
I am just glad I got through it, because I watched this episode probably 4 or 5 times and teared up every single time.
You're still with us? Holy moly.
Wow.
Yeah,
Also showed it to everybody I know.
It's pretty... What was that like?
It was interesting. There were folks who, the people I showed it to were familiar with the show. Mm-hmm. They really, I got nothing but outstanding feedback on the show. It was interesting. It was, and I think the internet, what I'm looking at has been super complimentary about this episode. Written by Seth MacFarlane. Also directed by Seth MacFarlane, so he's pulling triple duty again. The music, we have Andrew Cotti back on the music, and this episode premiered on June 20th, 2022. Amazing, and the integration of
the thematic
existing songs with the original scoring is just phenomenal. Back on this episode, we had Chad Coleman as Clyde, and Kai Wenner is back. BJ Tanner, I noticed in the opening credits, but I did not see Marcus Finn anywhere.
Yeah, I think that would insinuate that he's not a recurring guest star. He's a main cast member.
Gotcha.
But you don't have to necessarily be in every episode in order to do that.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong. We don't see Jay Lee either, right?
We did. Yeah, there was a short scene in engineering with him.
Here's what I love, really quickly, because I do want you to get into, you love giving us all the background information. But Jay Lee tweeted, if this episode doesn't get an Emmy, I'm gonna knock everyone out. Here's what I love about Jay Lee. He's hardly in this episode.
Correct.
And he gives a crap about this episode.
Yep.
It's just so awesome. So anyway.
It is amazing. And we had Rena Owen back as Savina. Norm Macdonald as Yaphet. And that we talked about our kind of, minor recurring cast. Kira Santoro's back at Jenny Turco, and Jim Mahoney is back as
Barlick Kunari.
Simlish guy. Yeah.
Hey, Bernard Chunai.
As far as the special guest cast, Andy Chapman as Admiral Howland. She's got a list of credits a mile long.
Moly.
Actor, producer, director. Just wanted to point out she was on 24, Day 7, which reunited her with executive producer John Cassar, who also worked on 24 for years and years. And we have a new Admiral Howland. I did not really find a concrete example. There is a naval historian named Llewellyn Howland III from Massachusetts. And we always talked about our New England connection on the show.
There really is. There's a lot.
There really is. And then we have John Howland, who came over on the Mayflower in 1620 as a manservant of Governor John Carver. He fell overboard during a storm and was almost lost at sea, but luckily for his millions of descendants living today, including President George Bush, George W. Bush, and Mrs. Teddy Roosevelt, he managed to grab hold of the topsail halyards, giving the crew enough time to rescue him. Fun fact, Seth MacFarlane, also a descendant of the Mayflower.
What?
Which part? I read a lot right there.
All of it.
Okay, yeah. So,
that one person dies, and our history is completely different.
And that's why,
Wow.
we may, if that had happened, we might be walking the road less traveled right now.
Callback.
Boom. But the person who owned this episode, Amani Pullum as Topa. She's from Los Angeles, so your neck of the woods. Even though you're from the Valley, and that may or may not count as we cover.
Hey! It's Los Angeles County proper.
That's just another callback for our longtime listeners.
Yeah, for real. You're on it today.
She spent
Mike's
her
A game.
A game. What is it you call it? The A game.
The A game.
She spent her early years as a dancer at the Debbie Allen Dance Academy. Very accomplished there. Her first major acting role was in Disney's Broadway touring production of The Lion King, where she portrayed young Nala. Her first television appearance was a recurring role on the reboot of Nickelodeon's All That. And next up, as of the time of this recording, she'll be seen in the role of Betsy, the daughter of Will Smith's character in the action thriller Emancipation. She's currently bi-coastal, going back and forth from LA to New York, where she's a student at NYU in the Tisch drama program.
Nice.
Also worth mentioning, Blessing Yates played Topa in 8 episodes of season 2, not in this show. This was all
which
Amani Pullum.
Sort of makes sense because they age rapidly, and I think the person that played Topa in season 2 may not have aged to the appropriate age, and also this is a heavy acting role that's
correct.
Being
And there was like a different kid that played Alexander in Next Gen, like every other every other appearance.
It's very common. Also, just to shout out Debbie Allen, that dance academy shapes like amazing, awesome children.
And not only that, but she was basically in like Delta Squad on that dance academy. So she got recognized and was on kind of like that top tier level from what I read.
Debbie Allen herself is a badass, and she's a recurring guest star on Grey's Anatomy, also a director, producer, and just seeing the way, like, there's awesome viral clips of her talking to the dance classes, and she's very inspiring. So it's not surprising that we have an awesome young performer out of that academy.
Yeah, no doubt, and just between that and the acting ability, just what a wonderful gift to give the world of this individual who played the role.
Dancing informs a lot in the body, and any actor will tell you it's your body is the tool. Like a great example being Chris Evans as Captain America. No one else could have played that role, and they even said it as much. The way he had the grace with throwing the shield was very like graceful and dancery, and no one else had that kind of panache, for lack of a better word. And that's a lot of informed by movement and your body. So it's
and I would say the same thing of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I mean, just
right. The access to your instrument being fully attuned and well only affords better performances.
And even in athletics, Lynn Swann was receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers back in the day, and there was some dance skills associated with him. I'd have to dig back into
not shocking though. It's not
Mission
shocking.
Log, the Pittsburgh Steelers, to dig up my research on that.
Worthwhile, really.
Get your kids in dance, people. It's important.
It doesn't hurt. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So the whole Hemblicite plot line.
Did you feel there was foreshadowing?
I'm watching the show with Tiffany, and I was sort of like, and she was like, "So are they going to do anything with this thing?" I was like, "Well, it's kind of the setting. You know, they're in this one place basically for a week,
which I thought was so cool to see.
Waiting on this other ship to come. You know, we don't normally get to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool to see like them on a low risk mission, kind of, except for the booby traps
and you know Charlie Burke's torn shin.
Right. Poor.
But yeah, it kind of set the stage. I kind of made note that this civilization did die out. Civilizations die out because they can't adapt to change.
I thought it was a pretty good correlation. I think
thank
that's
you.
a good extrapolation.
Nice.
Mike. Yeah, you're on it. Yeah. You're on it. And I think that's what helps when you watch the episode 4 times.
It does.
I was waiting for there to be a little bit more foreshadowing, because you get excellent foreshadowing with, let's settle and compromise this cultural dispute with our naked person, our naked ensign, and the other, that was a pretty lighthearted foreshadowing what was to come.
Yes, I was definitely trying to kind of find something to tug at, so to speak, on that with that scene. I'm going to regret that line for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I think you do. But
anyway,
you got to stick to it.
Yeah, we're going to own that. But I was looking at something to grab onto, if you will, from that scene.
It's worse.
That would count as foreshadowing.
It's worse. It's worse. You made it worse somehow, but it's better.
I am going to stop digging at that point.
Hemblicite, digging, architects. There we go.
Nice.
We got it.
And good comedic moment with Isaac, I thought, breaking into the tomb. I loved the arrows flying at him, and then it is now safe to proceed.
Yeah.
Thunk.
It was really adorable.
Yeah.
I was interested to see how this episode was going to shake out in true Orville fashion, because as you saw on Twitter at least, hey, this episode's going to be lots of love and laugh and tears and laughs. So I just didn't know, like, I think Seth tweeted that.
Right, he did exactly that. Yeah.
I just didn't know what to expect, because I knew if it's going to be about Topa, this is going to be a heavy episode. But it, obviously it was so lighthearted.
Just a couple of jokes and we're out of here.
But they did give us, as some people are putting it, classic Orville back, or like how you can expect Orville to handle serious matters by giving us some lighthearted things to hitch our post on, hang our hat on,
to thrust into.
Got
Jessica.
it. Yes.
I'm just going to be going there for the rest of the show.
So good. It's so good. Let's see how many euphemisms we can get.
Oh, so many more.
Let's keep a tally in our YouTube chat.
This will be the drinking game. Only if you're not driving or operating heavy machinery.
Please.
End of age. How many times can I stub my toe in this episode?
It's really hard, Mike.
Great scene in the simulator with the command program.
I thought it was interesting that it was in a Macklin setting too.
Yeah, it sure was. Now you've got Clyden, who seems to be more or less, at least this is kind of how it looked in Deflectors. That Clyden was the I'm sorry, not Deflectors, Sanctuary. That Clyden was kind of almost like the main parenting influence over Topa, because Bortus has duties on the ship, so Topa was sort of becoming intolerant of females at that point.
Right.
Bortus was trying to indoctrinate him, showed him the little baby Macklin girl, cute little baby girl, and Topa just was, I think he pushed a girl down at one point because she's female. Yeah. Like Clyden was definitely having an impact, and it was sort of like that cultural throwback to like being a Macklin, being a manly male Macklin male warrior guy, dude, bro. So to me, maybe it kind of made sense that Topa would aspire to be in the Macklin military and not the Union, the Planetary Union.
Yeah, that's curious. I'm sure you can hear my cat in the background. I won't be able to handle that for a couple minutes. I think to adjacent to that point, and I'll be referencing her thoughts on this episode frequently. My friend Jessie Gender, who talked about this episode on her channel, Jessie Gender After Dark, she reminded us that many people that are confused about their personality or even where to go in life, or their gender, etc., do go into the military. That doesn't mean can't be a fulfilling career, and I think we see that at the end of the episode, that this is something that Topa still wants. But it is interesting that we get to see her rage, her displaced rage, and frustration, but also not belaboring it with dialogue. It's just a really interesting way to see frustration being exemplified in an interesting setting.
So yeah, they definitely did a lot in that scene that was show, don't tell, which is so important, and we just really got to, I think, get some insight into Topa's state of mind at that point in their life. But then Kelly came in and did what she does so well, which is to kind of serve the people around her. That she saw somebody apparently working hard towards a goal, and the first thing she did was want to help. And then by helping, she was able to learn more about Topa that eventually did raise her concerns about some
Honestly,
other things. Yeah.
Might have saved their life.
100%.
Probably did.
Totally.
Right?
And what I loved about this whole thing was that, Kelly was not afraid to go to Ed and Claire and say, I need help. I need guidance, I think was exactly what she said. Isaac, when he was on the receipt, involved in that conversation with Topa, what's it like to be dead? Were you unhappy that they revived you? Thank Isaac, thank the programmers.
I love that you said thank the maker.
Thank the maker that he knew Union protocol enough to go to Kelly and report that, because that is so important.
It's so interesting because we can unpack that in the messages, morals, and meanings a little bit more. But I think it's very interesting that we see Isaac make some really humanistic calls, like empathetic calls. Because he ends up saying that I did the surgery in order to make sure that the morale of the, to basically make people like me again, if possible.
Yeah.
I think also he might have done it to keep Nurse Finn, Dr. Finn on the Orville.
As they say in the South, could be right.
Could be right. And I also think that Isaac learned from his he learned from his experience that attempting to end his life wasn't the right solution, and was empathetic with Topa as well, but didn't go, Topa, don't do this, let me, there was so much great informed
also
writing.
Empathetic with Kelly, because he knows that a visit after hours could maybe start rumors, and he said, if you wish, I could send a shipwide communique ensuring the crew that this is not a romantic or sexual encounter. I would just not do anything.
I would love a little bit more awareness when it came to that with men. Just so, you know what? I'm not against it. I think if men had just that much more awareness about the implication.
Oh, we say that all the time. Like when two people get off the elevator together in the morning when we meet up for the van ride in the hotel lobby, it's like, this is how rumors get started.
Yep.
Come on, people.
That's it. Exactly. You got to stagger the exit.
Yep.
That's what you do with the Mile High Club. You should know that, Mike.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, gotcha. Legally, he can't say anything.
I can't say anything. Did that Macklin Opsada cake look any good to you?
Yes.
It did. So it had sort of a crust around the outside with maybe
it had a Black Forest cake-esque thing to it. I feel like I was watching, the Great British Bake Off, and they were just getting, fresh with a Black Forest cake kind of things. But I think I would go
with one of the other 40 varieties myself.
Well, maybe they all look that way, Mike.
Maybe. I tend to not think so.
They just taste differently, that's all.
Okay.
The gluten-free version, the all-meat version.
Something. Maybe there's a vegan version out there.
Vegan version?
Vegan version.
The euphemisms are strong.
Yeah. And I know I did say vegan version. That did come out. So
you did, but that's great.
I did.
That's a good thing.
All right.
Because who cares?
So we did not get a lot out of Gordon Lamar today. Was that or Gordon Malloy? Excuse me, Gordon Malloy. Gordon Lamar. If we're gonna blend people like John Lamar.
What is Gordon and Lamar's shit name?
Galoy. No,
Galoy.
Gamar.
Okay. I want to read that /fiction.
All right, we will get right. We'll get right on.
I bet you it exists.
Yeah, I don't know how. Maybe that's not how he got all those blisters on his face. I don't know.
Tamar was Lamar and Tala, right? Tamar. Yeah. I like that one.
Something like, but yeah, just a tiny little scene from Scott Grimes today, which is a little bit of a bummer, but at least he was in there, playing a man child that got scolded by the doctor.
Yes, this is true. I think we just didn't need that much comedic relief, and there's a lot of story to tell in this episode.
But just another, that was the opportunity where Kelly came in. Just another opportunity to be vulnerable and reach out to people that she knows she can trust and get advice from. Because that scene was interrupted by Kelly walking in and saying, "Hey, I need to talk to you. I need you to tell me if I did a bad thing." And that was after she shared the Kimbach file with her, and at this point we don't know whether or not she shared the password with Topa or not. So yeah, just another that not sometimes we say never be the senior man with a secret. Don't be afraid to to go to people that you trust, hopefully people that you work for, and share your concerns. Let them know what's going on.
Yeah, I think this episode makes up for a lot of confusion that happened in previous seasons about Topa, this character, and exemplifies extremely well how to handle a very difficult situation.
No doubt.
it's not a perfect episode, and there's things that we'll get into. And again, thanks to Jessie, she helped me with wording, and I know you watched her video too.
Right.
That being said, they exemplified the dangers of not being honest and communicating, and the benefits of being honest and
Right.
communicating.
Yeah. If you do things yourself, you're never going to be any smarter. You're never going to come up with an answer that's better than what you personally can come up with. You get the team involved, you start to share resources and get other people involved. Then as a group, you can get really, really smart. And Kelly's smart, and she went for help on several occasions. But where one time she didn't need help was when she had Clyde pinned up against the wall.
Holy!
Yeah, that little
Holy.
sidestep and an arm, arm maneuver.
It's a jarring moment.
It was so good. I mean, okay, so many things. One, that scene was awesome, and it was so good to have Kick-Ass Kelly back because this show
she's
has
been
such
back.
She has been back, but the show has such a deep bench that, like, in Electric Sheep, for instance, Kelly had almost no role. Bordis had almost no role. We get into Shadow Realms, and Kelly's the one touching the wall, and Claire's like, "Don't do that," So to see her, back to kicking ass and back to being, in charge was phenomenal. This is the largest role I think she's had in New Horizons. Okay, I mean that's arguable.
Right.
It's just kind of me speaking off the cuff. I haven't compared screen minutes or anything like that, but this to me was the biggest Kelly role we've had this season, and it was so good to watch. And not only her acting, but her reacting. And I know I've said this before, but if you watch her reactions, they're just so skillfully performed. And if you're the kind of person that watches the show with your phone in your hand or your iPad, or you're doing other things and you're just sort of listening and you look up every once in a while on occasion, you are missing so much great stuff. Really watch the shows, because the reactions of the actors to what the other actors are doing is such a large part of the show, and so informative. When Bordis broke down and admitted that he sent that password, and Kelly tried to find the words, and you could tell she was trying to just find the right words, and then she settled on what? I mean, just all of everything was taken out of her at that point. It was just phenomenal. And that doesn't even mention, Peter Macon in that scene. Just, my God. That's where Jay Lee is right. If there's not an Emmy nomination for somewhere out of this episode, hopefully especially for Peter, then John Lamar, a.k.a. Jay Lee, I would happy to see you bust some heads over that.
Well, we
or
can't
smack some faces, although we can't advocate violence or
Right.
revenge on Mission Log the Orville. We do share your sentiment.
You're so right. I think when one of my favorite things that we did talk about this, and I love how much you absorb, the show don't tell is really strong in this episode. And the telling is wonderful in this episode. So there's a lot to celebrate. And I got to tell you, if I'm Chatty Coleman, it's a tough role to play.
But it played so well.
I know.
And I want to get into more on that later. But played, so the intensity that man brings to the role of Clyden is phenomenal. And yes, he's hard to like. But that has nothing to do with the actor and what he brings to the role, which is exactly what's needed and exactly what's asked of him.
It's so hard to act when you have that much prosthetic on your face. And I know that we've already talked about how the makeup crew has definitely worked to make it as much as their face as possible. And, even we've talked about this with the krill. It takes away like the forehead movement, which is a huge part of emoting, and they have to do a lot of work with the eyes. Chad Coleman is just like, screw that, I got this, and some of the best acting on, and it's over dramatic in just the right way. I can't even, now I'm jumping all over the place.
Samesies.
But in the best way. The quotations, such as "your indoctrination has clouded your judgment," and
That is to be expected.
What are you
What are you getting out of this?
is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It is the most logically level-headed argument. It's gorgeous.
And I have some more on that I really want to talk about a little bit later.
Yeah. Just really, there's so much to celebrate in this episode.
It really is.
Aside from the morals of the episode.
Yeah. And then we have Rena Owen back as Havina.
Right.
So beautifully portrayed. Tom Costantino, friend of the show, shared how they made that scene on Twitter. And if you think it was just green screened with some stuff in the background, you are mistaken. 5 tweets, Macklin courtroom redo. This was a large team effort, so he used the term "we" to describe production. They had to go back to dailies to see what was available to use from the Brannon Braga directed episode About a Girl.
Wow.
Never before seen angles to build an animatic. After we planned out the storyboard animatic above, and forgiving my OCD to keep the timing of the speech, we had to reconstruct part of the set to get new angles so that Topa could interact with the scene and with Havina. We also made boards of the storyboards. We also brought back some of the original actors, and of course the amazing Rena Owen to recreate new shots. Some of the cast dressed in season 1 uniforms for background plates as well. Howard Berger and team in action below, making sure continuity was kept. And then we filmed, re-edited in the new footage, and composited. Just amazing work on that.
The detail level
scene
was incredible because that scene is so important. And again, that's what's a little bit tough about this episode is it's so topic specific that it bleeds. It makes our job a little hard because it bleeds morals, messages, and meanings.
It does
a little bit. That's all. Is my point. It's a good problem to have.
And I think this whole season we've had a hard time where we kind of get into these conversations and then we're like, oh my gosh, it's time to move on because we've been kind of pushing up against that.
And it's a great problem. It's a great problem.
It really is. So also PSA, if you are not following Tom Costantino on Twitter, please do. He puts so much stuff out there, behind the scenes stuff. Basically, he was like the one man, maybe not one man, but a huge publicity.
He's like the
booster club for the show during the time in between season 2 and the Orville.
His name is Tom the Orville. He gives a about this show. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's the heartbeat of this show. And that's saying something because so many people involved in the making of the show absolutely, you can tell, love their job.
Right. This is kind of maybe splitting hair, military stuff. Mm-hmm. Isaac says that he was never an officer, which is why he could perform the procedure on Topa without violating the Admiralty's decision.
Right.
However, in Old Wounds, Ed said that Isaac is our science and engineering officer. And there is a difference between your position and your role. For instance, if you are the captain of a submarine, you might only have the rank of commander. You might only have the rank of, I think lieutenant commander might be a stretch. But you are in the role of captain, even though your rank is something different than that.
Okay.
So you can have a certain rank and have a certain military sort of recognition and be put into a different role. And I think Isaac, as the emissary from the Kalon, was fulfilling the role of science and engineering officer without ever having been commissioned in the Planetary Union. And that was my take on it. And I just wanted to answer some comment that was made on our Mission Log Pod Facebook page.
Where you can discourse with us, the co-hosts of Mission Log, the Orville.
Sure.
Hey, I just got to get that voiceover work in there every now and then.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you one thing. Isaac had been used for comic relief in the past, right? Mr. Potato Head. And,
yes. This town is not numerically adequate for
the totality of our combined mass. But man, nobody is more terrifying than Isaac when he's on a mission. Like his blocking, not theatrically blocking, but his physical blocking of Clyden as he entered the med bay. Oh man, that was. I would not want to be up against Isaac with conflicting goals. Just going to put that up.
Clyden was not in his right mind, or was in his right mind as a bigot. But funny you should say that about Isaac being intimidating. There, Tom Costantino's Twitter header is a picture. I think it's newer, but I hadn't seen it before. It's someone talking about the Orville, someone talking crap about the Orville, and it's Isaac's eyes red, and then someone talking crap about Tom Costantino, and his head opens up to the guns, and it's like it's the perfect protect. We just love him. Everyone loves him. It's the best.
That's awesome. What do you think? It's time to move on?
Oh, I think so, because I can talk about, this is the last thing I'll say. I totally forgot, because it doesn't work in the messages, morals, meanings. The songs are amazing, and it works with the theme. Nature Boy is one of my favorite songs of all time.
It's funny you mentioned that. I've actually got both songs in the messages, morals, and meanings part of my notes.
So we're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
But the thing I wanted to recall was when Bortus was going to go on stage in, I believe, season 1 to sing. And so it was a brilliant callback.
It was.
To finally give us the satisfaction of seeing Bortus sing, because I think I remember you even saying, what was that going to sound like? Because the way they cut him off, it made it seem like he was
if I remember right, it was My Heart Will Go On, wasn't it? From Titanic?
That's
okay.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
Good memory. I forgot that, but I just thought it was like the greatest rounding out of a promise that was made 5 years ago to finally give us his singing.
And that's why there was so much anticipation for that concert. And bring
exactly.
Talakiali is just bored. Just the Evite list just boom blew up.
That's why I think Ed/Seth had a glint in his eye when he's like, I know exactly what to do. It was really, really clever. But just like a performance, it's not over until the fat lady sings, and I mean that positively and not derogatorily. I'll see you on the other side, Mike.
On the other side.
On the other side.
So we've come to the part of the show where we explore the big ideas in the episode A Tale of Two Topas and discuss the meanings, morals, and messages to see if they align with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy. So Jessica, what do you think? What do you think as far as big ideas and philosophical engagement?
I don't know. It's pretty lighthearted, Mike.
Yeah, Isaac got hit in the head with an arrow. That was pretty funny. And
like
Scott
waka
Grimes with the allergic
boils.
Reaction. Yeah. the boils.
The boils. Really, really lighthearted. So there's things to critique. There's things, but there's more things to celebrate about this episode. And I mentioned her earlier. Jessie Gender has been a really vocal component about, and a friend of mine. I'm sure there are other people in the community that are fans, yet also critical of this show. But I just don't want to not cite that Jessie has helped me a lot with understanding certain things that are difficult with this episode, but certain things that are really great about this episode. Right. Ultimately, the thing that I will celebrate and critique about this show and this particular episode is representation. Not only do they do a wonderful job of, like you mentioned, with the recreation of the Havina trial when they were arguing about whether Topa should be reassigned, being able to show Topa, a female Macklin, in excellence was the importance about representation in a very subtle yet overt way. It was a gorgeous.
Hard to be subtle and overt, and
but it really was. It was both.
So, and we all have different perspectives on things based on our life experiences and where we are. So for me, I feel like this episode touched me deeply as a father. As a father who sees a child in pain and wants to help and doesn't know how.
So I could relate to Bordas, and I sobbed at that scene with Bordas and Kelly. Just absolutely sobbed at that, because when you see your child in trouble, when you see your child in pain, and you just want to help and you don't know how, it is a sickening, awful, helpless feeling. And thank goodness he went to help. He went for help and reached out for help with that situation. I related to About a Girl very much, and Sanctuary, as the Macklins doing surgically what many cultures here do culturally, and that is to subjugate and silence women and the female perspective and what they have to offer. There's cultures where females are not allowed to be educated. There's cultures where they're not allowed to drive. There's cultures where they have an unfair playing field when it comes to promotions and moving up in many, many, many different fields. And I'll just sort of leave it at that. And I felt like the Macklins were doing that surgically to their females the same way it is done culturally to females in many, many societies here on Earth. And that carried through to Sanctuary as well. This episode, I think, was different. This was a different, I think, look at an individual finding out who they are and wanting to become and practice and be accepted and be recognized and relate and identify with who they know they really are. And maybe that is just a very, very narrow slice of perspective for me, but I thought it was a beautiful episode. Now, I've never been in that position, so I will gladly gladly listen to points of view from other people that have been in that position, to know if it was done well or done not well, or done in a way that was relatable and accurate, and meaningful. But for me to see somebody who was denied the ability to grow and to flourish into the person they were meant to be, and then further denied the opportunity to correct that, only to ultimately be able to sort of blossom from this cocoon as a beautiful new being that they were always meant to be, to me was just beautifully done.
I can't argue that. I think I can't. And also, one of the things you and I discussed off screen was our validity to have this conversation, and we do have. Everyone is trying to understand this, and it's not a dead topic. It's a topic that is growing, and everyone's growing in their understanding at any given time. We may get certain things wrong. People that are not intersex or transgender may get things wrong, but everyone's trying to do their best ultimately. To your point about being a parent, I follow a model on Instagram named Rain Dove, and their Instagram handle is Rain Dove Model, and they can present either male or female. I believe they're a trans male, but also go by like he, they, she, like depending on what the day is, the whim of their life is. And parents will message them or DM them on Instagram, blaming them for confusing their child. My daughter thinks he's a man because of you, or vice versa, or whatever, and vilifying Rain. And some of the most, I'm sure it doesn't always go down this way, but Rain is very well educated in how to handle these kind of emotional affronts that these parents are experiencing, and has gotten parents to admit that they're just scared for their child. And while accepting that their child is different, or they want to help, ultimately, like Clyden is a bigot, and Clyden has internalized self-hatred, and it is hard to watch, but it exists in our culture, and it exists in the Macklin culture, clearly. what I've seen Rain Dove do is allow the parents to come to the realization that they want to help their child. There's just a lot of misunderstanding. And it is not an easy place to come from, especially when you're uneducated. So we want to help our children, and we think when people say you shouldn't do this, or I don't want you to do this, it might seem like they're being unsupportive, but really they're making a fear-based choice and trying to protect. Usually. And Clyden, by not telling Topa, is trying to protect Topa in the way that he knows how. It's not right. And it's transference, but it's the only way he knows how to cope.
So I think of the line, and I didn't even have this in my notes, where Borda said to Clyden, "It occurs to me, in all the time that I've known you, you have never been unsure about anything. What is it like to be so wise?" And it's not having all the answers doesn't make you smart, man, or thinking you have all the answers. It's knowing what you don't know, right? I read a quote a long time ago. The author is drawing a blank, French aviator, D'Exbury, I think is the last name. And he said, the important kind of memory or the important kind of knowledge is not knowing what you know, it's knowing what you don't know.
Right.
And because Clyden is so certain about what he knows, he's unwilling to go for help. And Bordas went for help, and Kelly went for help, and Topa went for help. And because they did that, they all were able to come up with the right answer. And Clyden, God love him. I've been a huge, critic of Clyden for a long, long time, as I think we all have been. Clyden was in this same exact position, right? He was a born female, reassigned as a male without his knowledge or consent, found out about it later on, and he made the quote, "If he is struggling, it is insignificant compared to the struggle he would face if he were to learn the truth." Clyden's the only individual that really can relate to this, and nobody really ever asks him why. Like, why do you feel that way? Why do you think Topa is better off like this? Clyden said it over and over again, but he never really said
why.
But in order to really get to the why, you got to ask why about 5 times. You got to say why, and he says, because it is tradition, because females are worthless. His words, not mine. And then you say, why? And you say, well, because that's how I was treated. And you'd say, why again? And you say, because I asked these questions when I was little. And you say, why? And you say, because I did not feel like I was complete when I was a child. You have to keep asking why to get to the answer. And they never did that with Clyden. And
is that true, though? Because I'm not discounting your memory, but I feel like you're word for word, even though you're not.
No, I just made all that last stuff up.
Well, no, but it feels like what happened in About a Girl. I feel like those conversations did happen in About a Girl when Clyden revealed that he was born female. I feel like some of the why was laid out there.
I think some of the why might have been laid out there, but this was tough, and this was in this episode. Topa may never be happy, but unhappiness is better than despair. And at that point, the question ought to be like, Clyden, is that how you feel? Like, has your life been, defined by despair since you found out that you were born female? Because if so, man, we got some stuff to work on as a family,
right?
And that never happened.
No,
no. Now I'm not saying I'm not saying that Clyden is a great guy and anything like that. Here's what I'm saying. Clyden was an abusive parent up until what we saw here, right? I think he was, I wish you'd never been born, told this child over and over and over again, who ultimately found out that they were born female, that females are worthless, right? Like, Clyden is abusive towards that child. Now, you can make excuses for why they're like that, and that's kind of what I just did. But at the end of the day, that cycle has to get broken. And in this episode, that cycle got broken.
Right.
And that's what's so important. So I'm not going to go back and look at, the alcoholic dad and say, well, he was an alcoholic and his dad beat him. That doesn't make it okay, right? What I'm saying is that there like that does explain the behavior. It doesn't justify the behavior, and it still means that the cycle has to get broken, which it did in this story.
I think that is an excellent point and a testament to the writing of this episode. It exemplified a lot of the different ways that someone might experience a problem such as this. Society telling you you're supposed to be one way, not being supported politically, not being supported culturally, being told that your needs are not supported, and not being supported by a parent. I think, we're seeing what a lot of older generation trans and intersex folks have dealt with and have behaved because of resentment, passed down trauma, etc. You're totally right that doesn't justify the behavior, but that's their work to work on. And Topa doesn't need to carry the burden of what Clyden is going through. So this is another thing that I think Jesse really clarifies very well. And this is more a call to action. With the Orville, if they have this opportunity in future seasons, fingers crossed that they get picked up for more. It's wonderful to exemplify these stories and show America what it's like to be intersex and experiencing, not a lack of acceptance from one's culture, but by not having LGBTQ plus representation as humans on the ship or in this world, we can assume that the Union accepts, trans and intersex and, gay couples, but we don't see any human representation of it. And so by making it an alien race that's experiencing this, it kind of gives some credence to the anti-trans community, or people can find different ways to. It's not great representation if it's not being shown as a couple that's not being discriminated against.
True, and
so it's just a call to action to give us a little bit more of that in the future.
As far as we know, any one of those crew members, maybe any one of those things, because they never bring it up and they never talk about it, and I think that's the best. Not the best. I think that's the best future.
Yes, and that does.
And I don't mean to never talk about it. I just mean that it's not a big thing. It's just not a thing anymore.
A perfect world that I want to live in is one where I don't need to go, it's a female-led group or written by, I want to, equality to me means that we don't need to be other. However, we don't live in a world with that luxury. And so I agree with why that's correct, but it does, by saying that, it means that the representation isn't important. So right now, in our 21st century world, we need to see that representation to go, by the way, this is a world where we accept, folks that are LGBTQ without question. Not a big deal.
Without question. Yep.
We just don't see representation of same-sex couples, etc., except for in the Macklin culture.
Right.
And that's complicated.
Yep. And, sci-fi when sci-fi is done best, what it does well is, hold a mirror up to what we do, and it uses, or to who we are. And I think this show did a very, very good job at it. But I wanted to just circle back just a little bit. I noticed one of my notes. Topa's response when Kelly and Borges broke the news that they couldn't go through with the procedure. And Kelly said, "It's okay, we'll keep trying. We're not done yet. We're going to keep trying. We'll find a way." And she said, "Don't bother. If they insist that I be male, then that is what I will be." There was something really kind of ominous about that statement. But also to me, that was kind of where, Clyden, maybe as an adolescent, branched off and said, if you want me to be male, I'm going to be the most male Macklin male that Macklins have ever seen be male. And that kind of informs why Clyden is the way he is, or potentially could inform why Clyden is the way he is. And thank goodness that Topa doesn't have to go through with that. I should say thank Isaac that Topa doesn't have to go through with that.
I interpreted it differently than I think other people did, which is great because that's good art. I felt like if Topa wasn't going to be able to get her sex affirming surgery, she was probably going to end her life. That's how I felt. Because if it were me, or if I was writing that, I would. Everything I've tried to make work up to this point has not worked, and then I've already said things that have alarmed people, and everything I said to Isaac made them think like everything. The options were exhausted, and so I would say something like, "Hey, no worries, I got this. I'm going to do exactly what you guys want me to do." And I don't think she would have lasted much longer. I think we were going to, I don't think, that's how I interpreted it. I don't know that other people did. And again, it's up for grabs if she actually meant that, because I think some people may actually just go, right, okay, I'll go down that toxic masculinity rabbit hole. I don't think Topa would have been alive for much longer, though. That was how I...
Yeah, that's really, really interesting to hear. That was, I thanks for sharing that. I thought she was going to just totally go down the toxic masculinity rabbit hole and just be the, like I said, the manliest Macklin any Macklin man has ever seen be Macklin in a manly way.
Well, I think that's just it, though. It very well could have been that. What is really so well done about this episode is they really gave us a great roadmap for the many different ways people experience this. And how to support someone going through this. We saw Claire saying very clearly, let's let Topa guide us with what she needs next.
What's next? That's up to Topa. Beautiful.
You said this exactly right. Honesty, conversation, etc. We saw Bortus just go, I love you. And that's it. That's like point blank. And so it was a great episode for exemplifying folks that don't have this struggle, who have the luxury of being born into a body that they agree with.
Right.
Who don't know how to help.
And I did want to touch on the music a little bit. You brought up Nature Boy. And of course, I looked into that song, written by Eden Abez, who was kind of like a proto hippie. He was like a hippie back in
Nick, right?
Yeah, back in L.A., living under the one of the L's in the Hollywood sign. It just sort of struck me that there's two of them. Yeah, that's what people said. He lived there. He dressed in robes, long hair, long beard.
Whoa.
Ate veggies. Said he lived on about $3 a week. Yeah, and wrote this song, and it sort of fades out. As Bortus says, and then one day, a magic day, he passed by me, and while we spoke of many things, fools and kings, the song kind of fades out. But the remaining words, I think, are so poignant for this episode. This he said to me, the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. And that is, I mean, that's a beautiful, I think, father-child moment. Just love me and I'll love you and we'll love each other and we'll be loved in return.
I don't think I realized that. I think that's exactly right. I think I was more moved by the fact that this is a song I love.
Yeah.
And the other one was so overt that You'll Never Walk Alone.
And then there were two other pieces of music in the show, but the music that was playing when Topa emerged from that temporary body that she was forced into without her consent, it was like seeing a butterfly emerge for the first time, and it was just so fitting that then just a few minutes later we get to see her fly for the first time with the line "Engage Quantum Drive."
Oh my gosh, I did! Look at all these things. It's so beautiful. It's beautiful.
They put it out there, man. We just picked it up and ran with it.
You did.
So what do you think? Do you think this aligns with the Roddenberry Star Trek philosophy at all? Does it hit any of the boxes?
I will never say this often. I think it does better.
Yeah, I mean, humanism, infinite diversity, infinite combinations.
Idic.
More, is that what that is?
Yeah. I just learned that. I learned it last year. I didn't know Idic.
Moral and ethical codes, and shining a mirror on ourselves. I think all of those things that Star Trek and good sci-fi has done, it does really, really well. Dare I say,
Dare we say better.
Better.
Dare
Again,
we say better.
I'm a big proponent for not directly comparing the two,
Yeah.
and it's not important whether Star Trek does it better or Orville does it better, but they nailed it.
They
and
did.
What I would love to tell people is to look forward to a few episodes after this season is over where we deep dive into some of the main topics and of this season and what the Orville talks about. And we are going to, if scheduling works out right, have Jesse Gender join us for a deep dive on this topic, which so keep a look out
We
for
do,
that.
and I think anything will be on the table. But of course, About a Girl, Sanctuary, and this episode, the Topa saga, if you will.
And if there's something you want us to deep dive, or like, hey, I would really love to talk more about this episode, let us know. We would love to be able to give you supplementals and capsule episodes that you would look forward to.
Yeah, totally. The theme of self-sacrifice also in this episode. I think of like going way back to Amok Time, the season 2 opener of the original series, when Kirk found out finally, after all of Spock's lying and hijacking of the Enterprise and throwing of soup, when Kirk finally found out the truth that Spock was going to die if he didn't get to Vulcan in the next number of days, he decided to go anyway and told McCoy, I owe my life a dozen times over. Isn't that worth a career? That's putting everything on the line for one person. Star Trek 3, Kirk's once again, Kirk coming to the aid of Spock in the search for Spock. Stealing the Enterprise. Captain, whatever his name was on the Excelsior. People are shouting at the screen right now. Said, Kirk, if you do this, you'll never sit in the captain's chair again. Well, my response would have been, I'm an admiral, ass. But that's true. I mean, there was a look on his face like he knew he was giving it all up to help his friend. And then Star Trek 6, one of my favorite lines of all time, when he's trying to get his helmsman to fly the Excelsior faster, he says, Captain, if I fly her any faster, she'll fly apart. And Sula said, fly her apart then, because he was willing to lay it all on the line to help his friends. I think there's something in there about Clyden's survival mechanism, which was to cling to the Macklin culture, which despises and subjugates females. Certainly not defending Clyden, just an acknowledgement that he was perpetuating that cycle onto his child. And that
that was his identity,
right? And that
he couldn't afford to break that identity,
right? And that cycle had to get broken. I would love to see Clyden go do some work somewhere. And then
the best part is, I think, to your point about the song, when you'll never walk alone. Even if your family abandons you, there is such a thing as a chosen family, and they're out there. And
you got your biological family and your logical family. And
I like that.
I didn't make that up. I think I got that from Trent Venegas, actually.
I would believe it, and I love that.
And I have that line means a lot to me. I'll just say that and let you all wonder. But the scene of Topa, when she got asked by Kelly to come up and sit in the command chair, and just that long scene of her walking up that spiral staircase onto the bridge with the instrumental of You'll Never Walk Alone, was just like, I just watched this episode for the last time, and that wrapped up 5 minutes before we started recording, and that instrumental of You'll Never Walk Alone just automatically started to make my eyes well up. And the lyrics, if you're not familiar, when you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, for your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. It's just beautiful.
It's a beautiful episode. I'm proud to cover this show, and this episode proves that.
Same here. Thank you for being my podcast partner doing this, because I could not do it alone. 100%, that's for sure.
You don't walk alone, Mike. You don't walk alone.
I don't walk alone. Well, Mission Log the Orville is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, technical production by Earl Green. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is podcasts.roddenberry.com.
Join us next time on Mission Log the Orville as we discuss Twice in a Lifetime. This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.